Good evening, good evening, good evening. I got something real quick for y'all. I want to talk about this Reshona affair, and after I talk about her, I'm gonna go ahead and get on out y'all's way. Let, and shout out to Really Be TV. Let's get it.
Let's get into some things of the day for the day, child. We got some stuff to talk about today, honey. We got some stuff to talk about. Hit that like button if you was earlier. So happy Tuesday, everybody. Y'all come on in, come on in, come on in. Not Rufus. Baby, y'all had me stuck yesterday on the Rufus thing. Y'all come on in. Can y'all hear me? Make sure y'all can hear me. Yeah, I know it. My vacation braids. Actually, these are really not my vacation braids, but y'all know I'm about to go on vacation. These are my flat twists. I'm gonna take them out when I get on the ship. They're not cornrows, y'all. They flat twists. They're not cornrows. But anyway, you can't tell from here. You can't tell. But anyway, what's going on, you guys? Come on in, come on in, come on in. Look, we're gonna talk about the young lady. I know y'all thought just when y'all thought we were done with R. Kelly, honey. Well, the young lady, who unfortunately was known from that infamous tape from the 90s, who was underage at the time, there's been a lot of speculation about who she was, who she's connected to, what her story is, what was, what wasn't, myths, fact from fiction, myths from truths. And she has now written her story. She's grown now. She has a child, and she has decided to tell her story. Thank you, Lady Virtue. Thank you, boo. She has decided to tell her story. And as a result of her telling her some story, she wrote a book, and she has been doing interviews. So we're going to read through the Rolling Stone article. I know there's some video clips, but she went on Good Morning America. What up, So Deb? Hey, boo. We're going to listen to a little bit of her clip that she did on Good Morning America, but we're going to read through this article. I contemplated buying the book, and maybe we could do, a read along like we did the pamphlet. Y'all know what we did with that pamphlet. But with that being said, I'll let you guys know if I decide to buy it or not. We're going to read this article, and then I'm going to see if there's anything more I need to know. But hold on, y'all. Real quick. Sorry. Give me a second. I'll be right back. Give me a quick second.
Hold on, y'all. Hold on. Come on, come on.
All right. Sorry about that, y'all. So let's get ready to get into it. Come on in. I need a timekeeper I need to be off of here no later than 7:50. No later than 7:50. So somebody give me a timekeeper around 7:40, 7:45. Y'all start giving me the countdown, okay? Okay. With that being said, let's get into it. Now, first, we're going to listen to I'm sorry. With that being said, we're going to listen to a little bit of her interview on Good Morning America. We're going to listen to a little bit of her interview, and then we're going to read through this article, okay? Okay. So let's listen to... Say, Robert told me the copies of one of the sex tapes of 14-year-old me were beginning to be sold on the streets of Chicago and across the country. Your reaction to that when you think about hearing those words from R. Kelly, that this tape is out there, and you were 14 years old?
I was empty. I was very hollow inside. I was very confused. Didn't know what to expect. And I was embarrassed.
Why not tell the truth in 2002 or 2008 when there was finally a trial after 6 years?
That's one of my biggest regrets, not telling the truth. But again, when I have been trained and groomed since I was age 13, I started believing the lies that I was telling. It was very foggy and unclear on what I really felt versus what was right or what was wrong. And even in moments where I despised Robert, I still lied for him.
When I look back at that trial, this idea that people who were not part of the jury were able to see some of that video, and the jokes that came from the video, because we're talking about seeing a person at the time, not knowing who it is for sure, being urinated on and talked about. And it's almost like, oh my gosh, do you look at even the justice system as not protecting you to some extent? I mean, thinking about that video being played before a gallery of everyday citizens.
I definitely think things could have been handled differently. I'm happy I wasn't there to witness everyone watching that. To the world imagery, I was not made to be a victim. I was a mockery. And that was very difficult to digest. It was very disheartening to know that my body was just being displayed and tossed around. And, when I look back on it, I wish things could have been done differently, but those are all of the things that I had to internalize. So that's a snippet of the interview that's been kind of making the rounds. And like I said, we're going to read the Rolling Stone article. It's an exclusive interview, and so we're going to read through the article. And then we'll have a conversation. If I have time, I'll open up the panel. Like I said, I have a hard stop time because I have to do my last cruise check-in with my crew at 8 o'clock. So I have a hard stop. But if we get through the article and I have time, I'll definitely let people come up and share their thoughts. Yeah, let's talk about it. So I'm gonna go ahead. Let me take this down. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen.
Okay, I'm back, y'all.
I'm gonna pull up the article and I'll read from the article. Now this is from Rolling Stone, where she did an exclusive interview with Rolling Stone. So we're gonna read from that. All right, let's get into it. Let's see here. Okay. It says she was the Jane Doe in R. Kelly's infamous tape. Now I'm here as Reshona. In a new memoir, in her first ever interview, Reshona Landfair details her decade-long abusive relationship with the imprisoned singer and
how she's reached the final step in her healing. So this went on for why is this? Hold on, y'all. Why is it blurry? Hold on. Because I'm logged in. Why is it blurry?
Need some water. Hold on.
I wonder if this is why. Hold on. Why is it not clear? Because I'm definitely okay, here it is. I wonder if because I was sharing it. I wonder if they didn't want me to share it. Good Lord. Rolling Stone, is it that serious? Alright, I think maybe it's because I was sharing my screen. I don't know. Weird. Let me try to share one more time to see if that was it. Hold on, let me try it. Child, they may have this technology. They don't want you to share it because, this definitely... I have a Rolling Stones subscription, so maybe... No, I think maybe... I don't know. For whatever reason, it was just blurry. I don't know what it was. Okay. So it says, I did not realize that they continued a relationship for 10 years. That I did not realize. I do remember the documentary and things like that, but I did not realize that this was something that was ongoing for that length of time. So, I'm already learning. Sorry, y'all. I'm already learning something I didn't know. So, all right, let's get into it. Let's read through this article. Okay. It may have rung a bell. I'm sorry. You should know Reshona Landfair's name. It may have rung a bell in the 1990s if you were a fan of Chicago hip-hop group For the Cause, where Landfair was the spunky, pint-sized rapper of the Cousin Quartet. So the group is called For the Cause. Okay. They found modest fame overseas by performing hip-hop covers of songs like Stand By Me and Ain't No Sunshine, but were unable to translate their European success stateside. Okay. That's something else I didn't know. I didn't realize that she was actually a part of like a whole group that actually did something. I didn't know that. Music ran in her family's blood. Her aunt Sparkle was a rising R&B star who had connections to major industry players. Landfair's father was a professional guitarist, and her mother had been a part of a local gospel group with her siblings. As the sweet-voiced teen grew older, Landfair could have continued pursuing music or forged ahead with her dreams of becoming a preschool teacher. Instead, she became known for something entirely devastating. For the past 25 years, Landfair has lived with the painful aftermath of her name lingering in the public domain without her consent, going so far to shorten her name to Sean when meeting new acquaintances. As a teenager, she had her privacy ripped away when she was thrust into the national spotlight, not for her musical talents, but for the perversions of a man deemed a musical genius. Landfair became known as the 14-year-old girl in the sickening R. Kelly videotape, a documented encounter of child porn filmed by the man she called her godfather. Now in her early 40s, golly, dang, that was that long ago, y'all. Oh my gosh. Landfair still resembles the baby-faced girl who radiated joy as she performed on the international stages. Standing around 5'0", even in platform Uggs, her childhood nickname Shorty still fits. Friendly and composed, Landfair purchased herself on a Boucher covered chair in a bright studio in Chicago's Lower West Side for what will be her first ever interview. Pushing past any lingering feelings of self-blame, she is determined to take back ownership of her story and her name with the release of her poignant and beautifully written memoir, Who's Watching Shorty? Reclaiming Myself from the Shame of R. Kelly Abuse. So I'm gonna pause right there. The fact that she's 40 years old makes me feel so old. So old. I thought the abuse ended after the trial. The fact that he and her parents continued afterwards. Child. I'm gonna finish reading through the article, but I remember...
I gotta pause it for a second. The fact that so many of these parents basically gave their kids away to R. Kelly is shameful. It's shameful, and those parents need to burn in hell. Let's continue.
I didn't know her name. I knew Sean. I think they used the name Sean in the documentary because I don't remember Reshona. But let me be honest, there were so many names in that documentary that I cannot say for certain that they never said her name. I'm gonna be honest. But I do remember Chon. I remember that name Chon. I didn't realize it was short for something else. But again, I think a lot of people knew her name, especially if you, like they said, if you were in the Chicago area, she was a local hit. Like people in Chicago knew her group. So yeah, I think people knew her name. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if it was only 20 people that knew her name. To be known for something like this, sheesh. I mean, that's not how I want anybody to know my name. Landfair doesn't shy away from much in the memoir, although she's clear this is not a tell-all or expose. Across 240 pages, Landfair describes how she became ensnared in Kelly's web and how the singer kept her trapped there for more than a decade through a persistent and dizzying combination of love bombing, control, secrecy, and abuse. There were punishments too, leaving scars and black eyes. Kelly recorded himself sadistically spanking Landfair to the point that she would bleed. She reveals she was still a virgin in the infamous tape. Her mind soupy from the crystal champagne Kelly continued to feed her. Wait, what? Wow. Wow. She's saying it ain't an expose, but it sounds like it's an expose. Tribe, do we need to buy the book? For years, Landfair refused to watch the tape, only doing so when she agreed to testify at R. Kelly's 2022 criminal trial in Chicago. She expressed her hurt, frustration, and anger over how so many people and institutions failed her, including members of her own family. Landfair is incredulous how society allowed a child victim to be turned into a punchline in comedy skits. But there's no axe to grind, no palpable feelings of hatred on the pages, even towards Kelly. The memoir is an act of purging, of Landfair unburdening herself of the anchor that came with saying her name out loud, a final step in her healing.
Mm-hmm.
There's no job that I can apply for that isn't the forefront of my life. There's no relationship I could be in where this isn't in the forefront of my life. Landfair tells Rolling Stone magazine, I felt like I was losing power. I came to a conclusion one day and I said, if I just lay all of this out, I no longer have to explain myself. I no longer have to fear the whispers about me at the table. Oh, you know who that is. Once I realized I didn't have the peace or privacy by hiding, I had to take ownership.
You had a professional business address and phone number instead of your home address and personal number? Are you...
Okay. Kelly's crimes have been well documented through several trials, investigative reports, and the pivotal Surviving R. Kelly docuseries. Together, they shed light on how the 59-year-old methodically leveraged his star power to pursue underage girls for sex over decades, often videotaping the encounters, as Kelly quietly paid off victims with six-figure settlements and escaped accountability in his means of control escalated. He became cultivating a harem-like dynamic where teens and grown women were instructed to call him daddy and had to seek his permission to eat and use the bathroom. In 2021 and 2022, Kelly was convicted in two separate federal trials in New York and Illinois, respectively. The charges of racketeering, ex-trafficking, producing child imagery, and coercing minors into serving concurrent 20-year and 30-year sentences at a medium security facility on the outskirts of Durham, North Carolina. At the center of it all was Landfair. It was the illegal video of her at 14 years old that found its way to Jim DeRogatis, the Chicago Sun-Times music critic who published damning reports on the singer that helped launch the first child case against R. Kelly. He was acquitted in the first trial, and yet she's never publicly told her story until now. There's no logic in it now. It was just my final chapter of letting this situation go, releasing myself of my family, releasing myself of it, my family, and not having to play in the shadows of Robert any longer. I really wanted to capture the fact that I was a human being. I had dreams and aspirations. I was not just the R. Kelly girl. Hold on, let me come back to the chat. I remember too, Abby. I remember when they were selling the tape. Y'all. I remember when you could download the video on Napster. Yep. In a statement provided to Rolling Stone on behalf of R. Kelly, the singer's attorney, Mr. R. Kelly wishes Miss Landfair all the best in life. At a young age, Miss Landfair was unfairly forced into the public eye against her will by people that were intent on destroying the reputation.
Really?
Intent on destroying the reputation of R. Kelly. She did not deserve that. Mr. Kelly has no negative comments to make about her. He hopes she finds success and peace. Baby, sir, you could have kept all of that.
Exactly.
Because at the end of the day, nobody would be in a position to share anything to disparage your character I didn't realize I didn't turn my camera back on. My bad, y'all. If your character wasn't there to be disparaged. What the hell?
You're the reason.
You could have kept that shit.
Damn right.
An early scene in Landfair's book begins with her eavesdropping on a conversation among older family members and her grandparents. R. Kelly has made us his family, and I am grateful. Landfair recalls her mother declaring, "That's God. I don't care what nobody says." If the whispers of Kelly's proclivity for young girls reached the Landfairs at that time, it would have been easy to wave them off, as so many did, as salacious and unfound gossip. I thought he was safe, Landfair explains. The way he presented himself to people, especially my parents, they thought he was safe. At the time, Kelly was putting distance between his bump and grind persona by embracing gospel music, releasing the soulful "I Believe I Can Fly," and publicly devoting his life to Christ. In reality, he was a wolf in sheep's clothing with a cross around his neck.
Yep.
There's a whole bunch of them up in the church today, child.
Sure hell is.
Kelly entered the Landfair's lives through Reshona's Aunt Sparkle after he took a newcomer R&B singer under his wing as his protege. It marked the start of Kelly's growing influence over the wider Landfair family. He subtly zeroed in on a young Reshona after meeting at a For the Cause performance, taking an interest in her hobbies while simultaneously integrating himself into her family's life. He courted the family's trust with generosity and opportunity. The impromptu meal at the Cheesecake Factory was a multi-millionaire's treat. Landfair's father Greg was offered steady work in the studio position for Kelly, credited on nearly a dozen Kelly tracks from 1999 to 2010. Excited and awed by Kelly's celebrity, a 12-year-old Landfair began spending more time around Kelly at his recording studio and tagging along to group outings with Sparkle. When Sparkle encouraged Landfair to ask Kelly to be her godfather, it seemed like a natural progression of the close bond the family was developing. After Landfair climbed into Kelly's lab and rubbed his head, following the precise instructions Sparkle had given her, Kelly eagerly accepted.
Wait, Sparkle, I thought you was... Sparkle, you say you defended this child. It sounds to me, Sparkle, you was pimping this child out, Sparkle. Well, it sound like to me.
Her innocent request. So Sparkle told you to ask that man to be your godfather by climbing in his lap and rubbing his leg at your You
ain't worth a damn, Sparkle.
What's up, everybody? As you guys come in, just go on and hit the like button and take a seat. We're reading through the Rolling Stone article. Though her parents tried their best, Landfair writes, she says they stood no chance against Kelly, a master manipulator who methodically groomed figures in Landfair's life before he turned his focus and true intentions on her. Under the nose of her family, Kelly's business team, and the revolving door of people in his recording studio and homes, the book details how Kelly stealthily groomed the middle schooler in plain sight. It started with secret, sexually charged phone calls and insisting that Landfair call him daddy in private moments. Landfair says she initially thought of Kelly as her boyfriend, though as the abuse escalated, the term paled when trying to label the all-encompassing role Kelly played in her life. He was always daddy, she said. He slowly pushed her boundaries, Landfair writes, played mind games, and convinced the teen they were desperately in love. That's the book. You guys can order it on Amazon if y'all want to. That's the book. That's what the cover looks like. Reclaiming Myself from the Shame of R. Kelly's Abuse. Who's Watching Shorty? And there it is right there. Okay. Robert knowingly victimized me as a child. I was brainwashed by Robert and an ex-slave. Robert made me want to unalive myself as a young adult. It was awful being me. I gave up my family for him. Nothing else mattered back then, and I still don't know why. By the time I was 16 and 17 years of age, the only thing that mattered was him. I was manipulated, and independence didn't seem like an option. Robert shattered me. The role Landfair family members, including Sparkle, played in fostering her relationship with Kelly, even as whispers of their relationship became screams, is difficult to reckon with. Landfair does not excuse her family's decisions. Instead, she contextualizes them, laying out a dangerous combination of willful ignorance, financial dependence, and shame. I think the first stages of my parents was utter naive denial, Landfair says. There were points Landfair wishes her parents could have had the discernment to intervene. In one passage, she writes about her father praying over her, rebuking every spirit of perversion and deception, and their family might encounter, not yet knowing it had already arrived at their doorstep. I wish your intuition had kicked in when I seemed uncomfortable and refused to speak, or to even acknowledge any man who was not you or Robert, Landfair writes. I wish you had been suspicious enough to catch Robert in the act of making sneaky sexual gestures toward me while I fidgeted, unable to respond and afraid somebody might see. By the late 1990s, Sparkle began ringing the alarm bell. Your Aunt Stephanie had been in touch with the Illinois Department of Children and Family Services, Landfair writes of her parents, confronting her for the first time about her relationship with Kelly. They've launched an investigation. Seems she thinks you may be involved in some indecent sexual activity at Robert's studio, and that is with Robert. What do you have to say about that? Kelly had been preparing her for this moment. Landfair describes in the book the extensive coaching he had put her through, drilling her like a military sergeant until she could smoothly lie about aspects of their relationship. It was long days of rehearsals. It was long days of grooming, she said. It wasn't until you got it right, until he felt like you could walk out that door and represent it the way he translated it. It would take that long. Her parents accepted Landfair's rehearsed denial, but when given undeniable proof of Landfair's relationship with Kelly a few years later, with the emergence of the videotape, they were in a nightmare scenario. Both Kelly and Landfair were adamant about their love, and a 17-year-old Landfair was so deep under her abuser's spell that her parents had no hope of successfully luring her away from Kelly. Instead, they knuckled down and tolerated the situation, which neither parent fully understand the scope or depravity of. Parent fully understand the or depravity of. So this is what I'm gonna say. I think a lot of people, myself, it wasn't until the documentary that I understood the timeline. So the video was made when she was 14, but it didn't come out until she was 17. So again, it was 3 years later, and that's what she's saying. She's saying by the time the tape came out, she was well under his spell. Like, it wasn't no, she was 100% under his spell. So that's what she's saying. Child, this thing is a mess. All right, hold on. Let me keep reading.
Yeah. Very much a mess.
I'm not saying my parents did not have shortcomings. However, if you weren't the parent of Reshona and in that position to have to choose, my dad did not want to be the person that we saw on Lifetime, banging on windows and throwing rocks and trying to get his daughter back. He was my security blanket. If you want me to be wait, what? Hold on. Let me read that again. If you weren't the parent of Reshona and in that position to have to choose, my dad did not want to be the person that we saw on Lifetime, banging on windows and throwing rocks trying to get my daughter back. He was my security blanket. If you want me to be
Huh? Huh?
I mean, I guess I understand what she's saying, that her father was like, at least as long as I'm going along with it, I still have access to you, versus if I try to shut you off, he'll take you away from me 100%. And y'all remember that mother that was chasing R. Kelly in that first part one of the documentary? I would rather my parent be the parent that was chasing me down than allowing it to happen just to have... Okay, never mind. Let me just keep reading. Sure.
Keep going.
Whatever protection her parents tried to offer existed inside of reality Kelly controlled. As Landfair details in the book for the first time, the years between 2002, when Kelly was arrested on a 21-count indictment pertaining to child charges, and his 2008 acquittal, were spent under a fog, with Kelly keeping Landfair under his thumb even more than before. In the book, she likens the isolating period to being under house arrest, though she arguably too forgiving a description given though that's arguably too forgiving a description given the hostage-like conditions she writes about living under. Paranoid that Landfair might turn on him, Kelly tightly controlled who she could see. He bounced Landfair between various locations, including his tour bus, recording studios, and cramped office spaces, none of which were bedrooms. There were times where I would be sleeping on a chiropractor chair. There were times when I would be sleeping in a closet. Kelly's lackeys dropped off meals, often delivered with a specific code, knock on the door. Even going to the bathroom required Kelly or someone else's approval. See, this goes back to what we were talking about with that young lady, Celeste Rivera, with David, the singer David, because
ain't no damn way.
So
ain't no damn way.
Services? Did the parent tell the school that they were withdrawing her and homeschooling her? Like, it sounds like more than the parents might have failed her, because she couldn't have been going to school. If she was 16 and 17 years old when all this was going on, there's no way she was going to school. I mean, DB said, mind you, he was still married during this time. My goodness. What year did him and his ex-wife get married? And can somebody Google that for me, please? I'm just curious. And yet, despite the supposed secrecy of her whereabouts, Landfair was never truly hidden. Kelly would host parties at these spaces, and a confined Landfair would listen from wherever she was being kept. Her father would secretly steal away and not... You gotta be mother...
Y'all motherfuckers ain't worth a damn.
Her father father would secretly steal away and knock on her door. Everyone knew how he operated, so it feels worse than what he made it look. You might see me in a different space or might have me come out so that it looks a little bit more like normal, but I'm living in the garage where the gym is built at a point. I'm living in the office space in the house with just a couch and a little handy chair. I'm just listening to music. I'm sitting at a desk. I'm here really pretending, trying to figure out if it's daylight or if it's sunlight.
Motherfuckers ain't worth a damn.
Your parents need their asses whooped.
Yeah, they do. They do.
They need their asses whooped. 96. So yeah, so he was married long before he even, yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, we know education ain't on the top of his list, but I'm just saying, with the school, why the school didn't call? If she, did the parents withdraw her from school? Because if she was underage, now I don't know what the age in Chicago is. I know in DC is 16. You can drop out of school at 16. So maybe at 16 you can do the same thing in Illinois. I don't know. But it's just, I don't know. And maybe that's just the teacher and me thinking, like, where was she, Not testifying in the 2008 trial has left Landfair with obvious regrets. Succumbing to Kelly's demands, sick with shame and fearful that she be the person held responsible for sending Kelly to prison, Landfair swore under oath to a grand jury that the girl in that video wasn't her. As Kelly's team weaponized Landfair's refusal to testify, she writes that she was just outside the courthouse, kept in a bedroom on Kelly's parked tour bus. You got it. Now, I remember them saying that wasn't her. I mean, of course, people were like, it was her. But I do remember people saying, I remember that she said it wasn't her. I do remember that. I didn't have the TV on, of course. Landfair writes of her spending time on the small space, aimlessly waiting for Kelly. Robert wouldn't let me follow the trial, just like he forbade me from watching his televised BET interview with Ed Gordon or listening to his radio interview since his indictment 6 years before. I wasn't allowed to watch, listen, or read anything that could make me question things, not the news or trending social media stories. Even though I was 200 feet from Robert, I might as well have been 2,000 miles away. Although more than a dozen witnesses, including some of Landfair's relatives and friends, testified that it was her on the tape, jurors would cite her looming absence as a major factor in acquitting Kelly. 3 of Landfair's relatives testified in Kelly's defense, claiming they didn't recognize the girl on the tape.
This girl had no protection. She had no protection. Yeah, I feel you, man. This girl had no protection whatsoever.
Nearly 20 years later, it still weighs heavily on Landfair. I must live with the choices my parents and I made, and with Robert's abuse of other women and girls who met him after he was acquitted. I'm not saying we did the right thing, and I regret that so many more people were hurt by Robert because he wasn't stopped in 2008. Baby. Landfair likens Kelly's control of her life and decisions to brainwashing. His wants suddenly became her desires too. The weight of Kelly's control over Landfair's life was absolute. She sacrificed everything for him. Tears sprang into her eyes when asked if she had regrets about quitting for the cause at Kelly's behest. That was the best part of me that went. That was the last thing I had, she said. School was already done. I was not doing basketball anymore, not going to prom, so for the cause was the last thing to go. That was the one thing that was good about me that I could always resort to, and it was a tug of war. That was probably the first time I can remember challenging him because I did not want to do it. Being in the studio to record the audio of her memoir brought that dormant spark back to life. I definitely miss music, she said. I don't know where I would fit in. I don't know where I would fit it in at this point, but I do. And I'm sure this is on YouTube. Y'all can look it up on YouTube to see and hear her when she was in the group For the Cause, Stand By Me. Y'all can find it right there. By the time Landfair was 26 years old, she had managed to untangle herself from Kelly's grip, though there were strings, like his limited financial support, still attached. Then there was the fear. Landfair remained paranoid that any new friends or colleagues would recognize her name and whisper behind her back about the unnamed trauma she was beginning to unpack. With every job I applied for, friend I made, date I went on, I was always plagued with worry. Did they know? Would they judge me? I was tired of living in the shadow of Robert's secret and had become mine. I had to purge. When the Lifetime docuseries Survivor R. Kelly premiered in 2019, she was honest. She had only heard fleeting talk by some project in the works leading up to the trailer dropping online. Seeing Sparkle cry about Landfair's experience, something that Landfair hadn't truly come to terms with, was discombobulating and infuriating. In a state of panic, she admits she reached out to Kelly for answers, only to receive sneers and deflection. She was more taken aback by the response from Darrell McDavid, Kelly's longtime business manager and accountant. Don't hurt him, McDavid reportedly begged her. Don't hurt Robert. I know there were a lot of things that happened that you know shouldn't have or that could have been avoided, but don't hurt him. The irony of McDavid's plea was astounding. This was the same man who was accused of helping coordinate payoffs to Kelly's accusers ahead of the trial, the 2008 trial. He had served as a mediator in a meeting between Kelly and Landfair's father, where the singer confessed to secretly having a relationship with an underage Landfair for the past 3 years. Don't hurt Kelly. What about the hurt already caused to her? Nobody ever considered me, she said matter-of-factly. Robert was a more valuable person in the equation. There are only a few moments during the 90-minute conversation when Landfair becomes emotional, discussing memories of her father who died in 2021, a year-long estrangement from her mother mandated by Kelly, and mourning having to walk away from her music career. When the topic turns to the 2008 criminal trial, her tears come hot and fast. Her voice cracks in pain, anger, and heartbreak at how thoroughly the system and those around her failed her. She is a pretty girl. Look at she's in her 40s. She is beautiful though. Who's calling me? In hindsight, it's unfathomable how wildly unprotected Landfair was. Community held stigmas around black girls being too fast or foolish when predatory older men took advantage of their innocence, made Landfair believe Kelly's pedo was something she was responsible for, keeping her silent. When bootleg videotapes of her abuse were being sold on street corners for $10 a copy. When national newspapers bypassed the now standard journalistic standards not to disclose the names of abuse victims or minors and used her full name, often misspelled, in their reports. And when Chicago's Cook County prosecutors failed to protect her as a victim, choosing to show her face in open court as they played the explicit and degrading 26-minute tape numerous times. If I were a Caucasian girl who got peed on, there would have been a different outcome. Everybody would have looked at things completely different. It wouldn't have been no showing her body in a courtroom. It wouldn't have been the skits and the mockery on the town. I'm not here to pull a race card or anything like that. I'm just speaking from my heart. And black girls, we develop fast. We're a little bit curvier. We wear our hair differently. And that sometimes our fault if something like this happens. For so long, I believed it was something I did. The entire time, nobody treated me the way I was supposed to be treated. To the public, I was a mockery. I was never a victim, so I never saw myself as a victim. That's deep. Now, hold on, I'm going to pause right there. That's deep. She was never treated as a victim, so she never saw herself as a victim. That's deep.
Yeah.
She was told she was fast. She was told all those things. I remember that stuff. I mean, those of y'all that are older, y'all remember that tape when it came out, all of those things. And she said, listen,
she was never protected
as a victim, so I never saw myself as the victim.
She was never protected.
But I do feel like the court, and I didn't realize that tape was played in open court the way it
Damn.
was. That is messed up.
Yeah.
That's messed up.
No
That should have
protection
been
of the
something that they
victim.
showed just to the jury. Why would they play that in open court? Because y'all remember during the Diddy trial, those were adults, and they didn't play those tapes for everybody to see. All right, let me keep reading. But when Kelly was indicted again in 2019, Landfair was ready, testifying under a Jane Doe pseudonym at the Chicago trial. In August of 2022, Landfair willed herself to look directly at Kelly. He gave me a nasty look, she recalls, in slight disbelief. When he gave me that look, it was confirmation that I was sitting in the right place. I felt like the nerve of you to hear all the things that you have taken somebody through, and for you to still feel like I owe you something or I'm disloyal. That's made it easy for me because I'm like, you don't get it. You think you're untouchable. You're still lying. I pray that now that he's had some time to think, that he sees his actions as wrong. I really think that in his mind, he's looking at it like, you wanted me to do this. You allowed me to do that. I didn't force you. Well, actually, you did. Chicago was Kelly's unchecked playground. He was a local hero, one of the most successful artists to emerge from the city at a time when only icons like Sam Cooke, Curtis Mayfield, Nat King Cole, Quincy Jones, and Shaka Khan rivaled him in fame and accolades. Kelly firmly rooted himself in the community. He could be spotted playing pickup basketball, attending local high school games, or just hanging out with his entourage at the Rock and Roll McDonald's. And even now, 4 years after juries across 2 states confirmed the testimonies from the survivors by finding R. Kelly guilty in a range of heinous acts, Kelly's presence looms over his hometown. Minutes before my interview with Landfair, a Lyft driver pulls up to an icy curb to take me to the studio where we were scheduled to meet. Kelly's 2000 song Bad Man confronted me as I buckled myself in the rear seat. As Kelly belted out the chorus, the oblivious driver made easy conversation about his lunch plans, calling it a hibachi order mid-ride. The song wasn't an intentional choice. It was part of the Chicago-themed playlist pumping from his radio system. But the casualness of Kelly's music still being a part of people's everyday lives was a jolting wake-up call for someone who was passing through. Landfair is unfazed when I mention the interaction. Instead, she nods knowingly. It's everywhere I go, she says. I work at a high school, and when I walk into work every morning, R. Kelly is playing on a loudspeaker before I get my day started. I just go into my little shell, and eventually it passes. That's just how I handle it. Landfair understands fans who can't easily write off Kelly's music in the wake of his conviction. The music itself is his gift, she explains. That's the good part of him. That's the creative side of him. So I can't take away a fan's memory of what they felt when that song came out. There have been moments when Landfair contemplated moving away from Chicago, putting physical distance between a city that still openly supports Kelly and is ground zero for some of the most painful memories. For now, she's firmly planted in a place she genuinely loves. It's where she was born and raised. It's where her family is. You don't need that family, but anyway.
So hell no.
It's the home she's created for herself and her son. Why let Kelly claim anything else in your life? I'm still here, she says. I still walk with my head held high. In the years after removing herself from Kelly's orbit, Landfair has rebuilt her life. She lights up while highlighting her job at a school-based health center and describing the next steps of the nonprofit she founded. Project Refine is a mentor program for young women. This is the beginning of my freedom officially. Through this book, I felt like I'm a channel. I'm looking forward to sharing my healing process and my testimony and letting that be freeing for somebody else. The nerves that Landfair had been supporting only shows as the interview winds down, letting out a relieved and shaky breath after answering the last question. It's been a long, hard-fought road to where she feels emboldened to step past the shame and the self-blame of being in R. Kelly's shadow. I was afraid to say my own name and be who I really was to work to friends, she said. I created Sean, and that's what I've been going by. She doesn't hesitate as she continues her train of thought. Through a smile creeps into her voice. Landfair I'm here today as Reshona. Oh, so listen. When adults blame the child victim, calling them fast, I see the same as the monster that hurt the child. Yeah, let me say this. And what time is it? It's 7:36. I got I got about 14, 15 minutes. I'll drop the link for a quick. I only have a few minutes, y'all. I really do. I have a hard stop, but I will drop the link for a few minutes if anybody wants to come up and just share their 2 cents. But before we do that, y'all, I pinned the link at the top of the chat. If y'all want to be a part, if y'all want to enter into the Black History Month, because I definitely want to.
Okay. I thought she had a little bit more, but that was Reshona Landfair's story. Unfortunately, this young lady had nobody protecting her. And if you are a victim of this, please get help. Thank you. Good night.